on my mind. Struggle with dusty corners till we're filled with fatal bombs. Bomb, bomb, bomb. The situation got upset when I stepped on a memory thought. I did it to myself. That I have you had to break free from the minefield that you are. Just before you break a bone. Oh, you're reflecting, I'm deflecting, burning tires to move on. Too many noises, clash the choices, future came and left like ghosts. No more messing, no caressing, heavy panning on the walls. How I did it to myself.
To you live from the Night Dreams Talk Radio studios, it's Gary Anderson and
tons of water ice found on the moon North Pole. However, all the projected landing sites are equatorial, nowhere near the poles where the ice would be and where there would be the greatest chances to find biological life.
So get ready, because Gary has only scratched the surface.
The scientists discovered 200 Goldilocks zones, and it says here that the bottom of these craters is 63 degrees Fahrenheit all the time, 24/7.
Fly me to the moon, let me play among stars.
And now, once again, the man we love to the moon and back, Gary Anderson.
Well, I hope everybody is having a good one. We made it to Friday. This is a pre-show before the show actually starts here in a few minutes. JC, how are you doing, my friend? I'm not hearing you. You're not coming in? Now yes. I can hear you. You don't even know how to operate your equipment after 5 years.
My daggone mouse was sticking. I thought it was, I'm going to have to give that a once-over. But anyway, doing good. How you been?
Oh, I am doing so good. But I tell you, my throat is really killing me tonight. So my voice is breaking up, and I apologize. You know what? I think we need to replace the Congress and the U.S. Senate with AI, artificial intelligence.
Oh, tell me more.
Well, there's not much more to say. Artificial intelligence couldn't do any worse than non-intelligence.
Yeah, so I guess we'll have to use the computer to look that stuff up.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I did a little weed eating today around the staircase, and I'll tell you what, weeds grow really fast. How come when I plant stuff like tomatoes, they don't grow? You grow them and they just grow huge.
My thumb's green, and then you're eating weeds. Oh boy!
No, I'm smoking weed. No, I'm not.
Jeez, and you're eating them on your staircase of all places.
Yeah. So again, a lot of things going on. Again, there's going to be another asteroid going right by the Earth here coming up this coming week. A huge one. And it's going to be about, maybe a little bit closer than the moon.
Yeah, listen, that's always scary. Even if they don't hit, think of if they took out some major satellites, what kind of chaos that could cause, Gary.
Well, just think about it if one of them ever hit. We were talking about the moon, having that metallic area in the moon. Well, I was reading more about it in the Science Journal today, NASA, and you know what it said? It is buried 180 feet deep in the moon.
Wow, that is really down there. I wonder what the theories are of where it came from.
Well, maybe an asteroid slammed into it. It was a metallic asteroid. Or could it be little green men in the moon?
Well, listen.
Fly me to the moon.
Yeah, it's going to be in your head all night.
Well, it is again. I played that and that's in my head.
It's all night long. You'll be thinking that after you go to bed. You'll be singing it.
Yeah. Well, to the new people out there on chat on YouTube, we're not on air yet. We don't go on air for about another 3 minutes. And I thought I'd take a little time and have a little fun with you guys. Again, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, I wouldn't. No, seriously. Subscribe to the channel and hit the thumbs up. That's very important you do. Who do we have on chat right now anyway, coming on?
Well, we've got Barb and we've got Kim that I can see right now. Now there's way over 10 or 11 people, but that's the only ones that are chatting.
Yeah, they're not used to the show coming on a few minutes earlier. We're going to do this from now on, by the way. We're going to come on and do a pre-show before the show starts. We go live at the top of the hour to the radio stations and everything. But, it just hit me in the middle of the night. I was sleeping. And it said, why don't you do a pre-show? So here we are. We're doing a pre-show.
Yeah, we're getting on here. We're getting everybody all fluffed up, ready to go for the main event.
Yeah, so they get to hear the intro all over again.
Fly me to the moon. That song's going to be playing in my head.
One of these days, pow, right? No kisser to the moon. Yeah, Jackie Gleason, the honeymooners.
Yeah, wait for Ralph to come around the corner.
Yeah. Yeah, I tell you what, that show was really ahead of time. You imagine, Jackie Gleason, even then, back in the early 50s, dressing up as an alien.
Yeah, I knew a guy that looked exactly like him. He's passed now, but he looked exactly like him. The little mustache, the build, everything.
You sure that wasn't Jackie Gleason, living a different life and maybe a parallel universe?
It could have been. It looked just like, I tell you, it looked just like, I used to call him Jackie all the time.
Okay, you're going to mute? We're going to start the show.
Let's get it going.
Yeah. Well, one way, let's get it over with, you mean. Okay, we'll be right back.
Sure that it'll be easier to clear you from my mind. Struggle with dusty corners till we're filled with fatal bombs. Bomb, bomb, bomb. The situation got upset when I stepped on a memory thought. I did it to myself. That I heavy had to break free from the minefield that you are. Just before you break a bone. Oh, you're reflecting, I'm deflecting, burning tires to move on. Too many noises, clash the choices, future came and left like ghosts. No more messing, no caressing, heavy panning on the walls. How I did it to myself. The table stand, those scrolls were loose. I guess you had
If you're not watching us live on YouTube, you're missing a lot. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel and become a Night Dreamer. Coming to you from the Night Dreams Talk Radio Network newsroom, I'm Guy Ticker with the strange news. Man needed 132 stitches after mysterious attack, but police refuse to believe it was a cryptid. I'm Guy Ticker. The strange news is brought to you by Night Dreams Talk Radio Network. Do you have a strange story? Contact us at nightdreamstalkradio.com. From Paul Wallace, author of the best-selling trilogy Escaping from Eden, The Scars of Eden, and Echoes of Eden, comes The Eden Conspiracy, Ancient Memories of E.T. Contact and the Bible Before God. The Eden Conspiracy explores evidence of ancient E.T. contact in the Bible's deep past, along with forgotten secrets about human progress, political power, emotional intelligence, and human potential. The Eden Conspiracy will take you around the world, from Australia to Brazil, Guatemala, Mexico, Ghana, Kenya, Italy, Scotland, England, Israel, Palestine, and ancient Sumeria. Archaeological sites in the Levant reveal clues of ancient experiences of close encounters. Meet with world-class scholars and senior figures in military intelligence whose privileged information concerns the hidden layers of covert government in the deep past and in the present day. What was the Bible before it became a book about God? What was it our ancestors wanted us to know? Can we recover their wisdom and build a better future? Why was this layer of information translated out of the Bible? Who made the changes? And with what agenda? And what does any of this have to do with ETs? Eric von Daniken, author of Chariots of the Gods, says, quote, Paul Wallace is one of my best colleagues. Paul has a way of speaking that everyone can understand. I have full respect for him. Get your copy of The Eden Conspiracy by Paul Wallace. Available now at Amazon in paperback or on Kindle. And leave a review to join the conversation. The Eden Conspiracy. Once again, it's Gary Anderson coming to you live. He is live, right? Okay. Live from the Night Dreams Talk Radio Studios, just in time for ET UFO Month. And you know what that means.
We're expecting to get some very interesting news about the possibility that relics from extraterrestrial technological civilizations might be near us.
And you know Gary and his pals are going to make sure the hidden gets revealed. That's how this current quest got started.
When a few multi-billionaires came to the porch of my home and gave me a few $1 million, and whatever we find will reveal, it will be open data, it will not be secret.
Sure, because you know when Mr. Anderson's involved, nothing stays secret.
It makes no sense to prevent it from being known to all humans, because eventually,
Without question, thanks to Gary,
people will learn about it.
So now, get ready to blast off and know the unknown with your host, the one, the only, Gary Anderson.
And that is me, at least this week. I don't know what I'm going to be next week. Well, JC, you got a lot going for you, you know, in the old camp book this weekend, don't you?
I do. I'm going to going to a little Bigfoot conference. Actually, it's kind of a big one, really. But yeah,
Where at?
it's down at the old Salt Fork. It's one of their big ones. They have early spring, so it's going to be, you know, a lot of big name people going to be there. So I'm going to kind of mingle and listen and talk to a few people, and who knows, I may even go fishing. Who knows?
I don't know. But you maybe a Bigfoot will grab you while you got that fishing pole out there and you're trying to catch a fish and you're not paying attention, and it comes up behind you and just grabs you and says, "I'm going to eat your fish."
You know, it reminds me of that. I read a story. There was a report. Somebody was fly fishing, and you know how you raise your pole back and flip it out there, and it snagged on something. Turn around, and he snagged a Bigfoot.
Now, fly fishing, is that where you use a zipper?
Yeah, it's a big one. It's better use plastic than metal.
Well, it's a different fly, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, again, you went out there looking for Bigfoot. Have you ever seen one? Now, I'm not talking about your ex-mother-in-law or relatives or people you don't like, but have you ever seen a hairy creature?
Not why I was looking for one. No. Like I said, there was that one incident before we even knew what Bigfoot was.
Yeah, but you were drinking and you had to go out and take a leak. And then you saw this creature, down by the tree, right? Just staring at you guys, saying, boy, look at those young guys, just wasting their life away by getting drunk.
Yeah, 4 of us, underage on top of that. Yeah.
What were you going there? Did you have girls with you?
No, it was just,
Okay.
we was on a baseball team baseball team.
Yeah. Well, again, you've been at this park. Have you seen any footprints? Have you seen any hair? Well, human hair and non-human hair. Have you ever found any evidence like, Bigfoot poop?
Well, I tell you what, now, when I was there 2 years ago, here's what I did find. This was off the beaten path out in the middle of the woods. I seen like a little bit of an incline, and it looked like something big had stepped on and slipped. So I thought, that's interesting. There was no defined, toe prints or anything like that. So I looked in the direction it went, and about 20 feet ahead of me was this sapling, probably 6 inches around, and about 8 foot up. It looked like somebody took it and bent it over and broke it. No, nothing else around it broke. That was weird. That was one of those things like, how did that break 8 foot high like that? And the footprint was headed that direction.
Well, I got an answer. A Bigfoot was going down the trail. It slipped in some poo, grabbed onto the sapling, and it snapped it or bent it over. That's it. There it is.
I actually took a picture of it too. It was
the poo or the sapling?
Just a sapling, but that's
see, that's the difference. I would have took a picture of the poo and then put it in a napkin or a plastic bag or a paper bag and then had it DNA tested.
Yeah, turn into the poo detectives.
Yeah, just to find out what it is.
Right.
Well, so I hope you have a lot of fun.
Yeah, it should be interesting. If anything, I'm sure we'll see a lot of people that's been on our show.
Yeah. One thing I was telling you about before we went on air, I got some pictures from a person. I'm not going to say who. He's a famous Bigfoot hunter. Showed me these footprints in the mud of a Bigfoot. And I was looking at it and I brought it into Photoshop. And then I started figuring out the footprints would have had to been somebody about 4'5", right? And maybe less than 100 pounds. The footprints were like 12 inches apart widthwise, and the stepwise was no more than a human, but they were huge footprints, like a Bigfoot.
Yeah, well, maybe it was a juvenile.
Well, if a juvenile has footprints that big, yay big, okay?
Yeah.
But then again, you're walking like Tiny Tim. You know who Tiny Tim was?
Yes, I remember Tiny.
Yeah, well, yeah. I doubt those were real ones. In Washington, there was a famous guy. It started all this Bigfoot thing back years and years ago. Him and his son, he had elaborate feet made on these poles, and they would go out like Mount Rainier, Mount Shasta, and a whole bunch of areas, right? But mainly in Washington, and make big footprints everywhere. And then they would wait to hear it on the news. And people were, I got these casts of he was and it all came out when he died. Several years later, his son fessed up and showed the news people the fake footprints, maker machine.
Yeah, that same thing happened down south, down in Louisiana. There was a pretty elaborate, very well done shoes that were made. It looked like these feet, and the guy was, jogging through the woods in the mud and the swamps, and people were being fooled.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be a great show. Who's our guest?
Oh, it is going to be a great show. I got to tell you, William Warwick. William Warwick. Now, he is an author who has been researching, Gary, and investigating UFO encounters from many, many people across the country over the years. Now, along with that, he has also been investigating possible UFO and military cover-ups.
Very, very interesting. Well, William, or I should say Bill, how are you doing tonight? Are you there? You know what? I think we lost him again.
Oh, no.
Okay, I'm going to play a little music and see if we can get him back. So
Yeah.
that's all I can do is just give you a little bit of music.
I'm not sure that it'll be easier to clear you from my mind. Struggle with dusty corners till we're filled with faded bombs. Bomb, bomb, bomb. The situation got upset when I stepped on a memory.
Okay, hang on. We're live on the air and on radio stations. Well, Bill, welcome to the show. All of a sudden, you weren't there.
Yeah, I don't know what happened.
Blame it on the ionic sphere of a solar flare discharging, and I don't know, maybe a UFO did it. Well, James, you want to go ahead and read his bio there for the listeners?
Yeah, William Warwick, he has been researching and investigating UFOs from taking reports from many people across the country. He's also an author. He's also been investigating possible military and UFO cover-ups.
Well, Bill, you've been staying out of trouble?
Mostly.
Well, what is, all the, we know that they've been covering up, going back in the 40s, maybe even before that. I mean, Roswell was a great cover-up. But what is going on with the military covering up? I know the Navy has actually supposedly come forward, but I don't even believe half the stuff that comes out from them. And you notice what, Bill? They're not releasing information like they used to.
Well, we have a saying in the Special Forces, tip of the spear, and I think we're just seeing the tip of the iceberg with some of these releases. They're really just kind of cherry picking the data and showing us only the stuff that I think they want us to see, so to try to, I guess, prep us for whatever they want to show us in the future. So I don't. These things have been going on for 50 years. My book goes back 50 years. You could go back 70, 100 years, 500 years, really, and you can find reports if you look hard enough. So it's a phenomenon that's been here for a very long time, and it has no indication of going away. It seems to be increasing the frequency, or maybe perhaps we have more ways of detecting them now. So obviously, there was, got a cell phone and stuff like that. So I think you reach a point where they can't keep a lid on it anymore, so they're gonna do whatever they can to control the information that does get it out, so that it paints the picture that they want to paint. And I think that's what we're seeing right now, is a controlled release of information. And the question is, what is the end purpose of it?
Well, to me, it seems like they're giving disinformation more than ever, because, this last thing with Congress, right? I got so many people that got a hold of me and said, it's going to be a major disclosure. They're going to really say something. And what they came out and said is basically all these UFOs, right? None of them are off-world. They're all inner world, from our own countries and other countries possibly, but nothing coming from, out there. And that, that's a slap in our face.
It's just an effort to wag the dog's tail and to get the Congress to give them more money to do the things they're already doing. The bottom line is this all has to do with money. It really doesn't have to do with aliens. It has to do with black projects and trillion-dollar budgets that, that nobody knows about and have a tendency to bankrupt countries. And we're kind of seeing the effects of this right now, because we spent, if you figure 1947 just as a starting point, we spent between $1 and $2 trillion adjusted for income every year. You come up with $66-70 trillion, which is basically our national debt right now. So I think the big 800-pound gorilla, or however you want to describe it, whatever kind of cliche analogy you want to use, is that the effort by the United States government and many other governments, and Russia in particular, but mostly us, has been to reverse engineer these technologies. And with a very good, you have to think about it, right? If you were a leader in the late 1940s, and the country was under the threat from God knows what, I would expect my government, people that were protecting us, to do these kinds of things and to have some kind of defense for us, right? So on the one hand, you see that it probably started off with all the best intentions in the world, and like everything, it kind of gets corrupted over time. And I think that's what we have right now is a secret black budget program that's so out of control and so big and so massive and so just all encompassing that the national security state has become a threat to national security.
Yeah, that's what I think. Really, when it would come down to something, I think they would control the country versus the White House. And that's the scary part, because people don't realize how deep this goes into. But, the situation, when you really think about this, I mean, we've been lied to for so many years. They're not going to come clean now. They can't, because they would make them look like, the government's been lying to us all this time. Then nobody's going to trust the government.
Well, it's funny. Back in the the late 1990s, there was a lot of discussion, if I recall, in the UFO community about amnesty. And what the conversation was at that particular time, if I recall, and I don't know how many people are aware of this, but was that we should just issue blanket and amnesty for all the things that were done and the money that was taken and everything else, and then demand complete transparency, because it seems to be that the only reason that we don't have complete transparency is because the organizations and the people that were involved with these cover-ups and the expenditures of the money and stealing it all are obviously concerned that they might be held accountable for all the things that they've done. And so as 26 years on after my personal encounter with the UFO and being fired from my job for reporting it, I would say that the only way that we're going to get what we really want, which is change and transparency and openness, is to issue a blanket amnesty for anyone and everyone that was involved, and just say, clean slate. Let's start with the clean slate, and everything needs to be open and transparent, because you can have a top secret program and know how much money is going into it without knowing what it's doing. You know what I mean? You can still have oversight without revealing, classified information. So at the end of the day, there's mechanisms for us to complete these things and to have the kind of government that we want. And if we don't demand it, it's never going to come. And the threat really is that it's going to take over. And I think we've already seen shades of that all over the place.
I don't think you could ever get any government, Congress, Senate, or president to even agree to anything like that. If they came and come up with a budget, okay, and they're not worried about putting us in a recession or, job loss, you think they're going to come clean and give everybody, hey, well, we'll let you come forward and we'll wipe this slate clean. I mean, look at what happened.
I think the alternative is that we have more 9/11s and more false flag events and more staged, distractions to convince to just erode the American public's, confidence in the general government. And look, I would be happy to say that 99% of the government people that work in the government are loyal Americans and patriots. It's not those people that are the problem. It's that 1%, so to speak, that are just corrupted to the core and who work outside the system and to get things that they want, and they'll do anything to get it. And I think at the end of the day, we're seeing this battle play out right now. Where America's had this power structure for so long that all of our enemies are basically ganging up against us with BRICS and stuff like that. Brazil, Russia, India, China. That's 75% of the world population and 75% of the gross domestic product.
Well, I was talking to a friend this morning, before the show, asking questions. He just retired from the CIA about 8-9 months ago. And what he said is the people on the street with the CIA are 100% honest. He said what it is the people who run the organization that is the ones you have to worry about. They don't care about anything other than their own political future.
Power, yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
power.
Yeah, and money too. I mean, think about it. $3.4 trillion was spent on the Iraq I and Iraq II and Afghanistan wars. It was the longest war we fought in American history so far, longer than the Vietnam War. And it's a prolonged low-intensity conflict. The whole purpose of all these things, including these military UFO encounter distractions, is to basically just distract the American public from what's really going on, so they can continue doing the things they're doing in the dark. And so, at the end of the day, what we really have to do is shows like this are great because it gets information out that a lot of times we'll never get out any other way. You're not going to see on the mainstream news most of the time, and it serves a public function to get information out that that you're just not going to get anywhere else, So I applaud you guys for having me on tonight. I'm working with Greg Black, who's a award-winning journalist, and he's helped to file some Freedom of Information Acts, get as much information as we can about some of these military crashes. And we've already got thousands of pages of information that we have to go through, and it's just incredible how much they keep back from the American public, just for one. And all you really have to do a lot of times is file a Freedom of Information Act request, and a lot of times you can get more information than you can dream of, and it just gives you some idea of the scope and the depth of like how much they really know that they don't share with the public, right?
That is interesting. Again, look at the UFO crash in Brazil. It was like Roswell. I mean, there's UFO crashes all across the Earth, and we are they deny them. That's the whole thing.
It's interesting because I studied the pattern, and I wrote the book. I go chronologically from 1970 all the way up to the present day, chronicling all of these, military encounters with UFOs, and it dawned on me that there's a pattern here, and the pattern seems to be that whatever this entity force is, I'll just call it X force, right? And that could be alien, that could be people, other governments from Earth. They seem to be consistently testing and probing our defenses, right? The good case that we have in my book is Fighting Tiger 524, and there's Sting 27, and these are aircraft that basically just disappeared off the radar with like one sweep of the radar. And Fighting Tiger 524 case, like the what would have been the aircraft, the E6 Prowler, I believe it was going in one direction, and one sweep of the radar, it's going in the exact opposite direction, which is almost impossible from a flight characteristic, right? And there's ways you can do it, but and then it just disappeared. There's no EPIRB signal, which is the emergency beacon or anything. So it occurred to me that when I'm looking at these things happening, even though they're happening maybe 10, 20, 30 years apart, is that there's a pattern. And the pattern seems to be that they like to take our aircraft. They seem to be like actually capturing our aircraft. And the only reason I can think of that they would do that is to study our technology and find out what our capabilities are. Which leads to a whole bunch of other questions, right? Like, is this an extraterrestrial force or possibly a terrestrial force? Because the only reason that I can think of why they would want to probe our military forces and know what our capabilities were is if we had the capability to touch them, meaning that they were concerned about what we could do to them, i.e., meaning they live somewhere on Earth or in the Earth or under the Earth, in the ocean. So
yeah, but but Bill, you got to think about this. Time on our planet versus time on another planet, another solar system could be totally different. The length of time and all that. But here's what it gets me is maybe they're probing us. So maybe eventually they want to take over the Earth or attack Earth at a given point. And so they've been studying us for the last 100 and some years to see what our capabilities would be. And maybe 100 years to us is like a life, a good lifespan. But to them, it could be a matter of, half of it or a quarter of it. So maybe they're setting us up for maybe an attack or something. Because, you look at the cattle mutilations, you look at human mutilations, you look at all these UFOs that have crashed. We had one here in Washington back in the 60s near Westport. And Clarkson, what's his name? JC? Hello, JC, are you listening?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, kind of. You were not. Anyway, Bob Clarkson, who's coming on?
That's James Clarkson. Yes, he's going to be coming on next week. And yeah, he was big into that crash near you.
Yeah, so, he said he was in law enforcement at the time. And he said all of a sudden there was a report about people thought maybe an airliner was crashing. And it went into the woods. And next thing you know, all these military vehicles were there. And the next day, they got these trucks with canvas over, pulling everything out. But they wouldn't allow anybody to go in there, including law enforcement. I think we're having problems with audio here.
Yeah, I'll tell you that. I think Skype's a little screwy tonight.
Yeah, something. Yeah, are you there, Bill?
Yeah, sure. So
I mean, these UFO crashes are everywhere. from South Africa to Brazil, the United States, Russia.
Well, that's the other thing that seems to be odd about it too, is that the phenomenon is it definitely comes and goes in waves and seems to congregate in certain areas, like off the coast of Virginia was one area, for instance, that events seem to happen over and over and over. Numerous cases, including the ones that they released by the Pentagon, were situated off the coast of Norfolk. And believe it or not, this is the area that was famously dubbed the Bermuda Triangle, which, scientists said there was nothing to it, but yet here we are, 2023, and the Pentagon's released, several reports, and Troubleshooter 615 went down off the coast of Norfolk, as well as Fighting Tiger 524. In fact, if I recall correctly, Fighting Tiger 524 created the special rules of engagement with the Navy, which said that they were going to have special rules of engagement when they came across these things, so they didn't start some kind of interstellar war. There was an Admiral Traynor came up with that in the 80s. So there's definitely a pattern. The Navy definitely knows a lot more about it than letting on to. And I think the question is, why are they, what do they plan to do with the information that they haven't released, and how do they plan to, prepare the public for what they really do know?
Yeah,
I think at the end of the day, we have to grow up. Like the civilization, humans as a civilization, we all have to do some adulting, right? And grow up as a species, because the problems are so big right now that we just can't ignore them. You know what I mean? The ways of doing things in the past are just not going to work.
No, it isn't. Now we need to take a break for about 3 minutes for the radio stations and all that. When we come back, I became friends about almost a year ago with a retired 2-star general from the Air Force who worked out of the Pentagon. And I'm going to tell again, so the new listeners will understand what is going on. He told me some interesting things. So we'll be right back with Bill. So stay tuned. You're listening to, well, naturally, Night Dreams Talk Radio.
The Disclosure 2.0 Conference in Washington, D.C. with the National Press Club event is June 10th through June 12th. Dr. Greer will share explosive witness testimony and analysis with a call for the government to open up all files on the UFO issue and get to the bottom of the secrecy. For more information on the Disclosure 2.0 Conference, go to this website, www.seriousdisclosure.com. Captain Paul Watson was a co-founder of the Greenpeace Foundation in 1972 and the founder of Sea Shepherd in 1977. In 2022, he was forced out of Sea Shepherd in a hostile takeover. So, he established the Captain Paul Watson Foundation to carry on the work they've been doing for half a century with the specific strategy of aggressive nonviolence, which means aggressive intervention without killing or injuring anyone. They took the name he created and the logos he designed, but they couldn't take away his life's mission. The foundation will carry on. This summer, with their new ship, the John Paul DeJoria, they intend to intervene against the Icelandic slaughter of endangered fin whales. And in 2024, they plan to be in the Southern Ocean Whale Sanctuary to stop the return of Japanese whalers who will be defying the International Court of Justice. They have one ship, but they need 2 more. Please visit paulwatsonfoundation.org to become a monthly donor. By becoming a monthly donor, you can help grow their Navy and help save our oceans. We don't survive on this planet with dead oceans. If the oceans die, we die. Please visit now, www.paulwatsonfoundation.org. Coming to you live from the Night Dreams Talk Radio studios, it's this.
Just a little background. A megaton is 1 million tons of TNT. So the bomb that destroyed Hiroshima was about 12.5 kilotons or 12.5 thousand tons of TNT. So this weapon that we're talking about today is roughly 1,700 times more powerful.
Only Gary Anderson brings you such explosive content. Who wrote this?
Within 1/1000th of a second, a fireball would form, reaching out for 2 miles in every direction, 4 miles across. Temperatures would rise to 20 million degrees Fahrenheit, and everything would be vaporized.
Nice ray of sunshine you got here, Gary. Anything else?
The blast would produce winds in excess of 650 miles per hour.
Awesome. And now, with probably more of the same, here he is, Gary Anderson!
And we are back. And a big shout out to Rory. Okay, you got to stop doing that, Rory. You know, I saw through my magic TV what you were doing yesterday. Anyway, JC, we are back. We got our great guests. We're talking about, well, cover-ups and all that stuff with the military. But Bill, I want to tell you something. It really alarmed me. I became friends. Like, he wrote a book, but the Pentagon won't let it be released. And what he told me, and I talked to the guy a couple times a month. We became friends. He said we are being watched by ETs. He said that there's a special group in the Pentagon that is monitoring all this stuff. He talked about human mutilations. He talked about aircraft that have crashed, and then they put it down as a training accident. When he said that actually they were dispersed when one of these things became a national threat. So they dispatched aircraft to investigate it, and poof, they find little wreckage of it. What's your feeling on that? And we lost him again. Okay, it's gonna be one of those nights, you know that. Okay, we got you back, I hope.
Yeah, I lost you there. Keeps on going in and out. Sorry about that.
I think it's Skype. They might have a problem.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, did you hear anything I said?
A little bit about a book, I think.
Well, I became friends with a 2-star retired Air Force general who worked out of the Pentagon as his last assignment.
They wouldn't let him publish it, yeah.
They wouldn't let him publish it, but what he told me is that there is ETs, that they're monitoring these craft when they come in and go, that they have actually dispersed fighters to investigate it when they show up on their radar as a national, and then they disperse aircraft or two, and all of a sudden there's a training accident, and the plane crashes, and there's very little wreckage left.
Yeah, it happens, I think, more frequently than we'd ever think, and because at the end of the day, a lot of these get listed as pilot error. So as soon as you list it as pilot error, like, the investigation almost kind of stops, because then it's just easy to write it off as pilot error. Then, you don't look at the mechanical issues, you don't look at any other thing at all after that. That's like the case of Craig Button, the A-10 pilot that, allegedly broke formation and a couple of weeks after the Phoenix lights and allegedly crashed his plane into the side of a mountain. And, that's the case that we've been investigating for the better part of 25 years. And, the more we learn about it, the more we realize that the government's explanation of what happened just doesn't make any sense. And that's when it really gets crazy, because at the end of the day, like, if the plane didn't crash into the mountain, then where's the plane? Yeah. And then you have to, yeah.
And that has been one of the more reliable aircraft that the Air Force has, which they want to retire, the Warthog, the A-10. Am I right?
Yeah. Well, it really had nothing to do with the aircraft itself. They alleged that he, had a mental breakdown basically and committed suicide and just decided to crash on the side of the mountain. There's no evidence for that whatsoever, that he had a mental breakdown or was under any kind of mental anguish. And at the end of the day, as a scientist, I look at the evidence from a scientific point of view. If the evidence doesn't add up, then, it just doesn't add up. And so when we studied we analyzed, the evidence that we could find that was published, at least, it boiled down to the seismic record of the time that said that there was no kind of seismic indication that a plane had crashed into the side of a granite mountain, let alone 4, MK2 500 bombs that would have had to been dropped before it crashed into the mountain, because they never recovered the bombs. So at the end of the day, if a tree falls in the woods, does it make a sound? Yes, it does. It absolutely does. And, the speed at which the aircraft would have struck the granite mountain it would have rang like a bell. Granite's obviously extremely hard, so it's a kind of serpent.
Okay, guess what? I think we lost him again.
That was some weird noise. Wow.
That was different. I'll tell you, I don't know if it's his phone connection or what, because it's stable, isn't it, between me and you?
Yeah, no, mine's been acting funny, but nothing like that. He's lost contact twice, and that was a weird noise coming across right when he was talking about some good stuff.
Yeah, hopefully we got him back. Are you back? No? Let's see. Wow, this is getting, interesting here tonight. Maybe Maybe people don't want us to have this conversation with Bill tonight. What do you think about that, JC?
Yeah.
It's not the first time. Yeah, it's happened before.
Yeah, I
We
wouldn't.
got knocked off coast to coast before. One time we started talking about some of this stuff for a while.
Well, you think about this A-10, right? Slamming into the side of a mountain, they would have been wreckage. I don't care if, that plane, I think top speed is around 600 miles an hour. So it doesn't have
top speed. Yeah.
Yeah, it can't go supersonic. And here's the thing. Maybe it was taken aboard a craft. That's simple as that. That's why it's vanished.
Yeah, but the only problem with that theory is it was in the middle of the daytime that it would have disappeared, and there were so many people looking for it by that point that you would think that they would have seen, some kind of UFO.
Yeah,
we did look at that, very seriously.
But wouldn't they have seen the crash and the explosion hitting the mountain?
So here's the deal: the explosion that allegedly occurred was an airburst. It wasn't a crash into the mountain. It was an airburst that occurred, at some distance above the mountain, and it could be possible that the plane exploded. It's one thing that we did look at, but then you would have to explain what happened to the 4 MK2 500-pound bombs. Those would have had to struck something, and then those would have made a seismic impact as well. So even if you accept and we posited the idea that possibly it was shot down, mid-air by one of our aircraft, and our government just didn't want us to know about it, and just rule it as a, pilot suicide, and then no one has to explain what really happened. So the question then really becomes what really happened. Is this all really just distraction? Why did Craig Button get in his plane and take off and decide to do whatever he was trying to do? If you dig deeper into that, the evidence actually indicates from several witnesses that he might have been actually trying to be a whistleblower. And so his if you follow the path that the government reported about his path after he broke formation and flew across Arizona, there was an airport that he could have landed at, which is Mogollon. There was an air park at the time. There was an uncontrolled airspace. And I have been contacted by an ex-person of media, let's just put it that way, who confided in me that Craig Button had actually contacted them the night before he disappeared. So, this case just gets more and more complex and more convoluted. But at the end of the day, the man just doesn't get into his plane and throw away his entire career. He's 32 years old, I think, captain, and, just to crash into the side of a mountain. I mean, that's just typically not what men like that do. They commit suicide with a gun or something like that. They don't disgrace their unit by doing something like that. It's just not in their character. That's why it's never happened before, really, that we know of, right? So at the end of the day, I think, if we figure out what happened with Craig Button, we figure out what happened in the Phoenix Lights, we figure out what happened on 9/11, we figure out what happened with a lot of things. And that's why we're pushing so hard to get the Freedom of Information Act, documents that are involved in this case, because we know for a fact that whatever the government's told us is just not true. I can't tell you exactly what happened. I just know that we're not being told the truth. And I think at the end of the day, if as journalists, that's all we can really do is just shine a light on the things that are wrong and hope that the American public will do something about it.
Well, one of these days, somebody's going to be driving or having a picnic somewhere, and all of a sudden one of these crafts are going to appear, and then they're not going to be able to cover it up, or one is going to crash in a populated area. And then what is the government going to say at that point? They're not going to be able to cover it up at that point, and, it could happen.
Well, it's funny because I've had so many straight-laced guys come to me in the past few years, like really recently, when I say 4 or 5 years. By straight-laced, I just mean guys with security clearances, and I've never had any kind of thing like happen this before. I had a gentleman that had a daytime sighting, and it was so disturbing to him that he contacted a guy, and another guy contacted me, and it was one of those things, like he was so terrified that like if it came out that anybody knew that he had seen this thing, and he was just freaked out by it. And I don't blame him. Like I was too. I mean, when I saw what I saw in 1997.
Okay, now let's backtrack, Bill. What did you see? Yeah. What did you see in 1997?
So in 1997, I saw about a 360-foot wide, boomerang-shaped, chevron-shaped craft drop out of the sky over Norfolk, and fall from like 5,000 feet to about treetop level, and maybe about 1 or 2 or 3 seconds, something like that, and then just float basically right in front of me over my head at treetop level, and like it was on parade. Honestly, like it wanted to be seen. I mean, I look back on it, and it was like it just it feels like it knew that I was watching it or that I'd seen it, kind of, and that and it could just be that it was scoping out the Norfolk Naval Base that had nothing to do with me. But of course, anthropomorphic thoughts that we have. But at the end of the day, I got such a really good look at it. I was in Civil Air Patrol, search and rescue, and stuff like that. So I was trained in all kinds of aircraft operations.
Oh, you were in the Civil Air Patrol.
Yeah, when I was a kid.
Yeah, so was I. I was, and they kicked me out of it because they had a club with gliders, and well, I was out. This is in Issaquah, Washington, where the club was, and I was out with the glider, and I stayed out too long. You remember the old Kentucky Fried Chicken with the steeples?
Oh yeah.
I took the steeple off for him. I remodeled the place.
Yeah, you were going to be a search and rescue pilot, that's for sure.
No, I wasn't going to be anything with that. They asked me to quit.
Look, son, I think you need to choose another career.
Yeah, I did. Vietnam. That was bad enough.
Oh, Jesus.
But, again, you think about this, the craft. Did it make any noise when you saw it? Was it quiet?
No, it's funny. It was completely dark. The only reason I noticed it is because and this is just a side story. My grandfather, it was the anniversary of my grandfather had died in 1990. It was March 3rd. It was March 12th, excuse me. And I was just looking up in the stars of Orion's Belt. I was standing on my buddy's porch. I just gone out to get a business card. And I looked up at Orion's Belt, and I noticed that the stars blinked out one by one. And I knew we were in a TCA terminal control area, restricted terminal control area in Norfolk Naval Base. Like we were right there by the runway. The main runway for Norfolk Naval Base. So, being Civil Air Patrol, you're familiar with how all this works. You have to have your anti-collision lights on. You're in restricted terminal control area. So seeing an aircraft in the sky with no anti-collision lights on really got my attention because I'm like, okay, this is really unusual. And so at first I actually thought it was like a hang glider or something like that because it was so, like you said, it was silent. And there was no sound. So I'm thinking, okay, it's got to be a hang glider. Like, what else is in the sky that could block out the lights of the stars of Orion's Belt? And before I even got finished with that thought, it had already done this like sort of spiral pattern, I guess, where it just dropped, not like a dive. A plane would dive. It like turned on its own axis like a maple seed pod drops, like a helicopter. We used to go on helicopters when we were kids, and it just did this like spiral thing, and boom, it's like right above the house that was basically right next to the house that I was standing in. And then so I'm thinking, okay, this is a glider. I'm telling myself it's a glider, right? It has to be a glider.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A big one.
Then, yeah, it has to be, right? You know what I mean? And this is all happening within the span of like 1, 2, 3 seconds. So then the next thing I know, it's I kind of lost it for a second. The next thing I know, it's basically like right in front of me. It's about 45 degrees up. It's about 10 or 15 feet, maybe not even that high above a tree. There's actually a high pressure sodium light that I'll never forget. I have this seared in my memory forever, and it's reflecting off the bottom of this craft. Now, mind you, there's no lights on it. There's no emanating light from it whatsoever. And I have to tell you, it was so perfectly blended with the night sky and the dark sky. It was almost like a bluish blackish. It wasn't black. It wasn't blue. It was iridescent. Not iridescent in like its shine, but it just it had a surface that looked like plasma. If you know plasma is plasma splattering.
Yeah.
It probably was. But anyway, so at that point, it was I could throw a rock at it. Like I literally could throw a rock at it. And it was the light was shining off the bottom, and then I could see sort of the outline of the craft. And then I was like, "Oh my God, that's not I don't know what that is." And my brain kind of freaked out because I'm going through these iterations, trying to like pictures in my mind, B2, B1, nope, all these different blimp, nope, it's like too fast for a blimp. And then it just kind of slowed down. It yawed a little bit, pitched its what would be a right wing, but it wasn't really right. Pitched a little bit right, yawed a little bit. And then I got to see kind of its outline again, just because it was changing under the light. And it was like I said, about 350, maybe 360 feet wide. Had two kind of black domes underneath it, one on each side, one in the middle. Had a little bit of bend in the middle. So when I say boomerang, I'm talking like a 5 or 10 degree bend in the middle. And here's what really got me. This is what really like when I knew this was like something completely off-world, I guess you could say, is because it was about 25 feet thick. And the reason I know this is because I could compare it to the houses that were in front of me. They were one-story houses with a gable roof. So as a builder, I know it's typically in this area with the 412 pitch, you're 14, 15, 16 feet up. So the side view of this thing was about 25 feet tall, right, and about 35 feet wide, like from front to back. And it had just barely curved ends. So if you made it like a rectangle and you just curve the ends just a little bit, like a brick, but with curved, like rounded ends, that's the profile it had. And I trained. I was at the time I went to OGU, and I was going for actually mechanical engineering. I wanted to be an astronaut, so I knew a lot about aeronautical engineering. That's why I was into the pilot stuff. So I knew Bernoulli principle, laminar flow, all that. And I'm like, this is not an aircraft. There's no air flowing over that, right? And I think at that point, I got a little scared actually, and I tried to shout out to my friend who was just a couple of feet through the screen door, and nothing came out. And then I took a really deep breath and I like shouted like as loud as I could. No sound came out. So I think there was some kind of, and that's when the craft was kind of closest to me, and I think there was some kind of noise cancellation technology that was being used, because I could feel the air coming out of my lungs, but there was no like noise coming out. And then I really got freaked out, and I just was paralyzed with, I guess, I don't know if I could call it fear, because I don't think I was afraid. I was just in awe. I was afraid to move a muscle, I guess you could say. You know what I mean?
Well, that's what happens when you see something. Your brain kind of goes into a daze for a minute. Yeah, shock, because it's trying to figure out what's going on. Trauma, really. I think I stood on the porch for a good 5 or 10 minutes, because I'm like, how do I walk through the door and tell my buddy what the hell just happened? How do I tell anybody what just happened? You know what I mean? Well, you know what would happen. What year was this now?
It was March 12th, 1997. It was less than 24. It was 24 hours before the Phoenix Lights.
Yeah. The bad thing is if you go tell your friends about it, or your loved ones, or your parents, or whatever, what you've seen, you know what they think? Well, maybe you need to go to the doctor and get some medication. I mean, seriously, because, I'm going to say this. In the mid-'70s, going through New Mexico, in the middle of the night through the desert, me and my wife at the time, we had an encounter, and I didn't believe in UFOs at all till I had that encounter. And it is still in the back of my mind. I don't ever want to see another one, actually.
Seeing is believing, bro. I mean, that's the truth, right? Because at the end of the day, like, until you've experienced these things, it's just like anything else. Until you've gone through it yourself, it's hard to explain it, man. I made the mistake of jumping back into my company CB radio truck, being naive and 26 and Johnny on the spot. I got on my company radio and I reported a lot. Well, what did you do in Civil Air Patrol? You report the last known position of the aircraft, what heading it was heading in, the time, right? And you report all that in. That way, if like the aircraft wasn't just, because all I could think of was it had to be some kind of military experiment that was going bad. He was looking for the airport, right? Even though there's no way that we could build that, right?
Right.
So, and I thought I did the right thing, and it was really just as simple. Just talk to my dispatch. Back in those days, cell phones weren't really a thing, and I got on my CB radio. I swear to God, this is just like right out of what's that movie called, Close Encounters, and Yeah, I reported it on the CB radio. Hey, I just saw this over here. I'm just letting you know if this thing crashes and blows up, it might be nuclear and we're all going to die. I joke, I was joking around. Not really, but kind of.
I was going to say, I bet it wasn't. Yeah.
Well, I was like, it was kind of like, hey, I don't know what this is, like, so off the hook, and it was really just like that. And they laughed, I laughed. I called in sick the next day, because here's the crazy thing. Here's what really freaked me out. So that was about 9:10 p.m., something like that. I went home. I was, you can imagine, I was a little strung out. Finally got to bed, woke up the next morning thinking fully well that, like, this was going to be all over the news. You know what I mean? Like, there's no way that I was the only person that saw this. And when I woke up the next day and I turned on the news and I, like, scoured the internet and there was, like, not a word about it, that's when I really got, like, freaked out. Because then I was like, okay, what's going on? And so I called in. I had 3 sick days. And I called in the next day sick, but it wasn't because I was actually sick. It was because a friend of mine had just been killed up in Massachusetts, and I was going to drive up there and go to his funeral. We just had a 5-year reunion, not even 6 months before that. And so I called in sick on the second day, and that was Friday, March 15th. And my boss shows up at my doorstep at 10 a.m. Never been in my house before in a year of employment, and it basically says, UFOs, Bill. And as soon as he said that, I knew. I just instantly knew, like, they're firing me, and I just couldn't believe it. And then, what's crazy about it, I was treated like a criminal. He actually called the sheriff. They wouldn't even allow me to clean my truck, got stuff out of my truck, my tools. Like, they literally called the sheriff and like pulled everything out and treated me like a criminal, which I still don't understand to this day. But if you want to boycott Roto-Rooter, go ahead.
Well, they overcharge people. I'm not going to boycott it. I just don't use them.
I hope I didn't get anybody in trouble with that, but it's the truth, though. You know what I mean? And I wish, I think it would be a different outcome today. I'm older and I've got more money. I was 26. I was going through college. I had basically nothing. I was supporting myself. I was by myself. I was on my own. But I think it was a civil rights violation of an epic magnitude. If it happened today, I would advise anyone to sue the pants off that company. I would help you.
Yeah, now, change the subject because we only got about 5 minutes left. Think about this. I tell this to a lot of people, ufologists mainly. Here's the thing. Here we are. We got nukes missiles, right? The Chinese and the Russians have hypersonic missiles. If we have all this technology of reverse engineering, we wouldn't need any missiles. We wouldn't need any nukes. We could just go over and zap them.
Well, the nukes are not for them. The nukes are to terrorize us, to terrorize each other. See, because that's the only way they can keep control over populations, with the threat that, like, well, we're the only ones who can control it. And if you don't control it, then the bad guy's going to come and nuke us, which is just ridiculous because everybody knows there's no way to win
but
now. So,
look, if we get involved with all these various wars, if we have all this technology, we wouldn't have to lose all these troops. We wouldn't have to spend billions of dollars in Ukraine, which was bankrupting us like it did the Soviet Union in the Middle East. That's what bankrupted them. We're going in that same situation. Now, I want to say this. I got to know Ronald Reagan while he was president, and through a friend of my dad who was a famous actor, and he put me in touch, and I talked to Ronald Reagan a few times, and I asked him one time, I said, does Star Wars, is that going to protect us against Russia or the Soviet Union? And
no, it's going to bankrupt them.
And you know what he said? He said to me, and then he realized what he said was wrong. He said, it'll protect us against them out there.
Oh,
and
really?
I said, what? And he goes, out there. And then he corrected himself. Well, the Soviet Union. But a week later, he was doing a speech to the United Nations about, the UFO threat and all that, throwing a thing.
Isn't there an evil here now? Yeah, or a threat now. Yeah, I remember that.
I wonder, do we actually have a device like Star Wars?
Oh, sure. Oh, of course. Of course. Yeah, but and again, this all goes back to the black projects and the secret programs, and the money that's being siphoned from the government. Why do we have such high inflation? Why do we have a debt recycle every 10 or 20 years? We have a complete debt recycle. Call it whatever you want. It's a debt recycle. And what they're doing is they're washing out all of the black money that they've spent on all of these various things, and putting it on the American taxpayer. And they keep on doing it over and over. It could be COVID this year, and 10 years from now, it'll be the mortgage crisis, and then it'll be another bubble, and then another bubble.
Well, it's going to be I hate to tell you, Bill, there's going to be a mortgage crisis here in a couple of weeks if they don't raise the budget. And let alone,
oh, you mean the debt ceiling?
Yeah, if they don't raise that, you put a lot of people are going to be homeless.
You take the whole entire economy of the world.
Yeah,
it's all based off of. I'm not going to say I'm a financial expert, but I know a bit about it and learned a bit about it from having to do the things that I do with real estate development. But yeah, the whole COVID thing, put a whole entire generation of people back 30 years.
It has,
and
we're not recovering. Now our time is up. Can you tell people how they can get your book?
Yeah, so I thought we might be able to have it up by March, but it's looking like we're going to shoot for maybe July 4th. Actually, might be a good day. So keep an eye out for the 4th of July. I think we're going to shoot for that now. It's called Eagle Down: 50 Years of Military Encounters with UFOs. And Gary, I really appreciate your time. It's been a great interview, and I hope you have us back on soon so we can update you on
there's a lot more we need to talk about. Now, do you have a website or anything you want to share?
So I'm pretty much just WikiLeaks UFOs on .com on Facebook. That's just the name of it. We came with it a long time ago, and that's basically all we use for right now until we get some media presence here. We got a couple of websites that we're working on. It should be really good when the books come out. So for that, you can just reach me on Twitter too. And I appreciate your time.
Okay, my friend, I really enjoyed having you on here tonight.
Thanks so much, Gary.
You take care and have a great weekend.
You too, buddy.
Okay, my friend. Well, right now, my recommendation, because, maybe they've never let it default, that, JC, about, raising the debt. But here's the thing. I would myself, I've been buying silver or getting silver because let's face it, if they don't raise it and the money is going to be like monopoly money, that. And the only way you're going to be able to have money to survive is if you have gold and silver to trade. I'm just saying, I was reading statistics today, how many people will lose their jobs if they don't raise it. How many, the cost of food, cost of everything is going to go up. Interest rates for loans are going to go up, and the stock market is going to go like that.
Yes. And listen, people are already hurting, Gary, and he made a good point. The whole COVID thing set people back generation anyway. So that really hurts. Listen, how many people are almost homeless anyway before this added on to it? That's
all it takes. And people getting Social Security, they're saying if they don't raise it, they're not going to get their Social Security or anything from the Social Security Department come up next month. So think about that. How many people are going to be able to no food stamps for the people that require food stamps? There won't be any of that available if they don't raise it. So people need to get a hold and write a letter or email the White House. That would be the smart thing, and say, hey, get your act together and your congressman and do it fastly because they're going to meet with the president on the 9th, and you know what he's going to say. And that's and you know what, it's killing us, but yet we can give billions and billions to Ukraine right now, and we don't have the money. If we wouldn't have been given all this, I don't know, it's really screwed up. Well, again, who do we have on chat before we go? You got like 30 seconds.
We got Kim, we've got Bob, we got Rory is out there. Also seen Thomas Connors on the chat. Let's see, that's all the ones that's about everybody.
Yeah, a lot of people on chat, but they don't chat.
Yeah, but those are the only ones I see chatting anyway. But thanks, thank to all those people on chat tonight. Thank you for joining in.
And don't forget, not this weekend, but the next weekend, we start with the Hitman. And he's going to cover the thing like ghostly things and ghost hunting and the paranormal things, okay? So make sure you listen in on Sundays at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Well, I will catch you all on Wednesday. Everybody have a good one. Stay out of trouble. At least if you get caught, say the devil made you do it.
almost sure that it'll be easier to clear you from my mind. Struggle with dusty corners till we're filled with fatal bombs. Bomb, bomb, bomb. The situation got upset when I stepped on a memory thorn. I did it to myself. That I have you had to break free from the minefield that you are. Just before you break a bone. Oh, you're reflecting, I'm deflecting, burning tires to move on. Too many noises, clash the choices, future came and left life.